Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Everything About Power Plants. Friends, I would be starting a new series in which I would be covering upon the regulatory market or the regulations which govern the Indian electricity. The Indian electricity market is a very regulated one in which both the rules were made by the central government as well as the state government. Since electricity is a concurrent subject. So both the sellers, that is the generators, as well as the buyers, that is the distribution side or the transmission side, has to govern or has to play within the boundaries made by the government of India as well as the various state government. So in this series I would be covering upon the regulations part. I would be taking one by one regulations related to the Indian electricity market and giving a introduction as well as the procedures that how that regulation affect the generator side basically. So one such regulation which I would be discussing today is RRAS. The RRAS stand for Regional Regulatory Ancillary Services. I have made this video in I have made this video into basically three parts. In the first part, I would be covering upon the sum of the regulations. In the second part, I would be covering upon the remaining regulations, and in the third part, I would be talking about the what are the amendments which actually has happened within the context of RRAs. So let's start with. So this is a table of contents which I would be covering here today. That I will be talking about the preamble, then the objective of these regulations, the scope which covers the regulations, the role of nodal agency, the role of RRS provider. The remaining topic, that is role of regional power committee, the role of SLDCs and triggering criteria for RRAS will be covered in the later slides. Similarly, in the next section, I will be covering upon the scheduling and the withdrawal of RRAS, the how the communication between the RRS take within the RRS take place, how the accounting of energy in RRS has been done, the RRAS settlement, what are the difficulties which have been removed, and what are the different forms in RRAS, and finally the thing which is of prime importance, that what are the new amendments which have happened within the context of RRAs. So without wasting much time, let's start with. The RRS basically came into force after the two grid failures which happened in 2012. As per the report submitted, that there should be certain ways to relieve the congestion which actually happened in the grid because of the overloading of certain areas. Normally, it has been seen that the northern grid is always a power deficit in comparison to the other grids. Therefore, certain lines which feed power to the northern grid are always overloaded, and the certain lines which connect different grid from western to eastern grid are always underloaded. So in order to relieve the congestion on the lines which are overloaded, or in order to maintain the equal loading on all the lines, it was decided to introduce a system through which this can be managed. This will actually help in controlling the frequency within the normal range. So the RRS is regulations are brought in order to control the frequency at nominal level. So the basic reason of bringing these regulations into force is to maintain the nominal level of frequency, that is near to the 50 hertz and as close as possible, and also at the same time releasing the congestion in the transmission network, which happened because of the overloading of certain areas. Now, the regulations will be applicable to all the regional entities, that is the interstate generating stations, whose tariff are determined by the CRC. The procedure for application of this tariff is covered under Regulation 14 of the CRC Regulation 2015. The CRC has published a document on RRAS. The purpose of making a document on RRAS is to talk about the roles, responsibilities, the eligibility criteria, the scheduling, the dispatch, accounting, and settlement of energy traded under the RRAS scheme. The methodology on which this settlement will be done or the, the scheduling will be done is also regulated or also given in the document of the CRC. The, the document also talk about the role of nodal agencies, that is NLDC as well as the RLDCs, who would be basically responsible for implementation of RRAS services within the India. In my next slide, I would be talking about the individual role of both the nodal agency as well as the RRAS provider, that is the generator side, in this context. The remaining thing will be covered in the subsequent slides. The CRC has chosen the NLDC as the nodal agency for implementation of ancillary services at different interstate levels through RLDCs. The NLDC will publish a forecast of daily demand on day ahead basis, that is one day before, by collecting the data from SLDCs, DVCs, and other moderated sources. If required, the NLDC can itself act as a moderate agency for collecting the data. The NLDC will also prepare a merit order stack of all the generators. The merit order here I means is that, for example, a variable cost, that is a cost of producing 1 unit of electricity for a particular plant is 3. For the another plant, this cost comes to be approximately 3.5. And for the third plant, this cost comes to be approximately 3 rupees 80 paisa. For the fourth plant, it comes to be the cost of electricity comes to be 4 rupees. So the person, though the generator, who has the lowest cost will be scheduled first. That is, a person who is having a cost of rupees 3 will be given a schedule first. Then this is called upregulation, that is giving more or telling generator to generate more than the schedule which has been given to it by the beneficiaries. Now, in case a particular transmission line has to be less loaded or the generation in a particular transmission line is to be reduced, in that case, a person which has the highest cost, that is, in the similar example, the person who has a cost of rupees 4 will be told to brought down the electricity or will be told to generate the less electricity as compared in the schedule which has been given to it. So this is how up regulation and the down regulation is based on the merit order of the generator. The generator or the nodal agency, that is NLDC, should will also consider the congestion in the lines, that is, while distributing the schedule, it will also ensure that the no lines is getting congested or overloaded during this process. Now, in case of exigencies, that is, when there is a huge gap in the demand and the supply in a particular area, or when certain lines are going very overloaded, then the nodal agency, that NLDC, will not look after the merit order. At that point of time, the basic need is to reduce the gap in demand and supply of electricity or energy at a faster rate. Therefore, The RRAS provider, that is the generator, which has a faster ramping up capability or ramping down capability, will be given a preference on the merit order, because the basic aim of this document is to ensure the frequency stays at the 50 Hz only. Now, the nodal agency, that is the NLDC, will also look after the other power system parameters such as frequency, line loadings, etc. The NLDC will also publish the variable cost of each RRA provider on its website on monthly basis. Now, the in case of emergencies, the hydro generation may be considered as ancillary services because the hydro generation has the faster ramping rate in comparison to a thermal power plant. Now, next we will talk about the role of RAS provider, that is the generator, in whole of this RRAS process. The RRS provider, that is the generator, will be responsible for providing the details as required for RRAS by the 8th day of the current month. The format in which these details will be provided is called the form AS1. The details which will be given in that document will be effective from the 15th of the same month, and the period for which these details will be valid is 1 month. That is, the RRS schedule will the rates for RRAS will be valid from 15th of 1 month to the 14th of the next month. Now, what are the details in this form is AS1? A sample of the form is attached to the right side of the slide, which you can see. In this form, the things which are basically asked is the name of the station, the owner name, what is the unit wide capability of a station, and what is the total capacity, what is the fuel which is being used in the station, what is the maximum possible X bus generation station a plant can give without being getting overloaded, in which area the plant is located, what is the ramp up rate, means how fast a plant can generate electricity and how fast a plant can reduce the generation, what is the minimum load required for stable operation, what is the fixed charge of a plant, what is the variable charge, that is the value to generate a 1 unit of cost, and how much time it will require for cold starting, that is cold and warm start, that is if a plant is been shut down for more than 72 hours, what is the minimum time it is required for to bring the unit on bar, and in case of warm start, that time is 24 hours. What is minimum time a plant required to if it has been shut for greater than 24 hours and less than 72 hours. And in case of gas based station, it also talks about if there is any module constraints. Next, the form or next thing which the RRS provider has to tell, that whether the fixed cost which is being submitted in this document is based on the section 62 of the Electricity Act, that is as per the CRC condition, or the cost which is being submitted is an escalable or non-escalable type as per the section 63 of Electricity Act 2003. Now, the variable charges which is provided by the any generator is basically the average price of electricity for the previous month. Now, here I want to explain you certain thing. Normally, a generator has to keep a stock of 20 days, but certain time it's been difficult for the generator to keep that much stock of coal because of various reasons. So the generator has to buy the coal from different sources, and therefore in order to know the exact coal GCV or the cost of the coal, it is difficult to get all the details at that particular point of time. Therefore, what a generator does is that based upon the previous month cost of electricity, it decides that what would be the rate for the next month. For example, suppose the last month the actual energy cost for 1 unit comes to be approximately 3.5 rupees. Now the generator will submit the same cost to the RRAS, that this would be my cost of electricity for the next, this would be expected cost of electricity for the next month. Now for the next month the cost can be somewhat lower or somewhat higher. In both the cases, the generator will be billed on the basis of the rate it has given in the form AS1. If the cost would be lower, the generator would get some preference, but if the cost is higher, then the generator has to bear the loss. The document which the generator has to submit has to give a supporting document, has to give a support document is spent to the in respect to the fixed cost, that variable cost, ramp rate, technical medium, etc. The RIS provider or the generator has to provide the details for communication, such as what would the contact person or the nodal person with which the dealing would be done, what would be the telephone exchange or the email ID at which the communication would be done by the grid to the generating stations. The RIS provider or the generator will increase the generation as well as decrease the generation as per the instruction of the NLDC, which would be given through respective RLDC. The RIS provider or the generator has to ensure that for the period of dispatch it has to maintain that particular schedule only. So let's end our slide here only, and in my next video I will be talking about the role of RPCs and other things related to RRAS. The most importantly, the focus would be on the different specs as well as the what are the new amendments which have been done in case of RRAS. So if you have any doubts related to the today's lecture or the today's video, please mention in the comment section. I will try to respond them. And if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel and also click on the like button. Thank you, take care, and have a good night.